And moving forward, I would like to welcome our speaker for our second Tech Talk, Mr. Ahmed from Ministry of Economy. Please welcome to the stage. We also would like to welcome Mr. Dobien van Ingen, the CTO of Aruba HPE, to the stage. A big round of applause, please, for Mr. Dobien. And we would like to welcome the panelists, CIOs for this round, Mr. Mahmoud Kamal from Group CIO of Haptur Hospitality, Mr. Kumar Prasoon, Group CIO of Al Safir Group, and Mr. Ahmed from Ministry of Economy, please. Welcome to the stage. As well, please welcome Loy Ahmed, ICT Ambassador from Dubai Municipality. Welcome to the stage. Please have a seat.
Okay. So, see if my slides get up. Let's hope so. There we go. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Well, for me, it's the first time actually, well, not in Dubai, but it's the first time in presenting at the CIO 200 event, and it needs to be quick, so I will try to get a big breath, and I will go fast as we go. And I think it's also the perfect time, because if you look, and I think it's the main theme of today, innovation these days is happening at a lightning speed. But I think what is even more important is that technology is being adapted faster than ever by any business I saw since I'm in the industry. And therefore, I think in my particular talk, I want to have a discussion about what we see about the networking edge and how the networking edge is changing and how we can change it in a way that we can make sure we can meet up this ever-increasing demands of users, and how we can ensure we can make up in order to make sure we can adopt all this technology that are driving our business these days. So my name is Tobias van Ingen. Within Hewlett Packard Enterprise, I'm the EMEA CTO and Pre-Sales Director for the Aruba business unit. And as I mentioned specifically, I want to look at how we can create the next generation digital experience for the networking edge. And the main reason why I'm so specific in focusing the networking edge, because I see so many presentations, what we need to do in the data center and what innovation is happening in the data center. But I think if you take a step back and you see what's happening all outside of the data center, where we need to connect to the networking edge, I think that is growing and growing and growing. And if you ask a lot of people, how would you define the edge of your infrastructure? They will probably mention something like this. See if I can get the next slide. One back. They will mention something like this, and that's their desk place. That's the place where they go to work every day. And most of the times there's a fixed PC and there is a fixed phone where they go to. But there are so many changes happening in there. And all the innovation about the desktop initially was an attribute of the workstation, and we moved it into a lot of different technology where we moved it into something that we know as a modern desktop today. But I think if all the innovation that went into there was around productivity, and it was around providing tools to deliver productivity on that particular desktop. And I think a lot of time what is really nice in the IT industry is that we can connect multiple trends to each other. So one of the trends I think started 10 years ago is where we had the smartphone. And at that particular time, if you're looking at the amount of devices and the different types of devices that we need to connect to the edge of the networking has grown significantly. So that's why I think I want to have a look at how we can create the real next generation digital experience for this. And when we look at this about the different types of devices, let's see, next slide, okay, is where we always talk about the perfect storm. And I'll get back to that one later in this Star Wars theme. But if if we look at we also talk about the generation mobile. And the generation mobile get to our premises, they have a complete different view about connectivity and a complete different view about consumption of technology. And when I came back to work 10 years ago, when I came to the HPE office, at that particular moment in time, I always had the best internet and I always had the best compute because all the productivity was focused around that compute power. I had the best. But if I'm now going to the home office, I probably have more devices. I'm probably using complete different tools than I do at the office. I probably even have faster internet at my home than I have in the corporate office. So that has completely changed. And I think if you start thinking about how we are changing this, is if you look at the consumerization of compute, I think these days the consumerization of compute is completely out of control of the IT organizations. So, and that's due to 3 trends, I think. The first trend is mobility. Users now picking their own flavor of devices and picking their own flavor of operating system. It's not dictated anymore by the IT organizations. And the second trend is IoT, the Internet of Things, right? What all needs to be connected on the network is huge. Out of a sudden, as an IT organization, you got so much pressure from organizations you never had, right? Let's take a retail, for example. Or let's take a generic enterprise organization, and you suddenly are in conversation with real estate that want to place sensors in your infrastructure because they want to measure the efficiency of the building, or they want to do automatic room booking systems. That's technology partnerships you never initially had as an IT organization. And then the last trend is cloud. And with cloud, I think that's, if you compare it with what VMware did in the industry, is where you had your compute resources, was all about efficiency, right? How can I use the investment I do, use it as efficient as possible? But with cloud, we're completely changing the business. I think the theme of today, I also hear from everybody, is about that technology is really driving the business these days. That's my interface from my organization, a lot of times, to my customers, right? So if I need to have release cycles from 6 to 9 months, how can I keep up with this innovation? If you have Office 365, for example, from Microsoft, I think every week if I log on, I got a new square. I don't know what it does, but it's a new square. I got new functionality that drives me something. So I think cloud gets us into this continuous innovation, continuous deployment model in order to make go and to keep up with the go-to-market issue of technology to our customers. So how do we want to do this as Aruba? And that's why I say, the first thing I think we all need to do as an organization, accept that it maybe will be chaos about the things that we want to connect. So and as Aruba, we run a ring-fest this chaos and making sure we can increase the network and data security on that one. The second thing we want to deliver on that one is we want to deliver everything around programmability and workflow automation. Because if you look at most IT organizations, there is no increase in budget, or there's no increase in the amount of resources to have. So workflow automation and programmability, we need to invest in that one in order to make sure we can do the same, or we can actually do more with the technology side with the same set of resources in our infrastructures. So let's have a little bit of a look. Oh, see if we can get to the next slide here. Not sure. So let's have a look about how we can create these next generation digital experiences. And for us, that's 4 experiences. One is the workplace experience. And in the workplace experience, it's everything about this generation mobile, right? I think a lot of organizations are already going into this workplace experience where they have a little bit mobile first kind of mentality. But what about how we can making sure that everybody can use the apps they're using from home, that pressure of the social life, connectivity into the enterprise organization? How can we make sure that we have this automatic room booking system? How can we make sure that we keep on attracting our organizations for new and young talent and what they expect from a technology? So that's how we have workplace experience. The other thing, I think in particular if you have a company that is a little bit older, is how do we transform our brand experience to a digital brand experience for everybody that comes into our premise, right? Visitors, partners, employees, and partners. We need to make sure we drive that digital brand experience. And then we have the operational experience. And the operational experience to me is not just focusing on Industry 4.0. That's one side, right? Where you can need to connect sensors, use that data and converge the data with all the other data you have in order to do better analytics. But I think it is about operational experience in general, also for all the enterprise organizations, making sure you get an infrastructure where you can connect these devices and do something smart with it. And then we should not forget the IT experience. And the IT experience, and what we are doing right now already, but I think we can do two things much better. And that's driving analytics from an IT organization. And the analytics for me, I always see the business side of the analytics, but I think there was one side of the analytics specifically related to the IT organizations, and that's what if we use all the infrastructure we have and all the context and rich data we consume there, first of all, in order to use it, also to deliver a better experience to the users or to the partners or everybody wants to come on our premise. Because if you think about that, I think these days it's not about the KPIs anymore and it's not about all the SLAs. It's about how can I measure my IT organization and making sure I deliver the best experience to everybody who wants to come on my premise. And I think that's where we can use all this analytics for in order to create much more proactive management. Maybe even automated recovery if a user is having a bad experience from that perspective. The other thing what the IT organization think I can do also with the analytics, if you are consuming this analytics anyhow, and you find a way to give the analytics back to the business at the IT organization, you become the middleman and making sure, for example, if you're in a retail, how you can connect all the Wi-Fi data, how you can connect that to how people are flowing to your retail shop, or maybe even connecting to loyalty data to do very personalized digital marketing experience, for example. Or for retail, giving this data in order to make a greener building and shutting down access point or shutting down other types of devices, certain places of your network is not being used. So this is the data I think IT can be key in to deliver back to the business. And how we want to do that is our battle plan is there. How we want to deliver that as Aruba is the following way. We want to move away from legacy infrastructure. And we want to really truly focusing on a mobile first infrastructure. And we do 3 steps in that one. The first step is delivering the best of breed wireless solution integrated. Not as a build-on architecture or as an added architecture, it should be built on. And the way we are thinking about edge networking should change also. Because if this wireless really becomes our main connectivity point, then the edge switch in the network becomes an aggregation layer for all this wireless traffic and becomes an aggregation layer to deliver connectivity to IoT devices in a secure manner. The second step we want to do in there, we want to stop organization managing ports and managing devices place by place based. So we want to make sure you move into an environment where you can manage your applications, where you can manage your users, and where you can manage your devices. And that, I think, should become the new normal for every organization. The third step is providing all this programmability and provide us all this real-time configuration. I think if we look at what the cloud did, I think mastering the cloud model in making sure on the networking edge to adapt and connect all these devices, to deliver all these analytics, that's what should be the key to success. And how we do it is with the following architecture. And the following is our mobile-first architecture, where we have at the bottom layer, we have everything around hardware layer. And that hardware layer is the same for everything. So that regardless what you buy, there's switching, access points, SD branch solution, like software-defined WAN, that should be the same. And then you have a software platform on top of that with network management, network analytics, location-based services. But that software platform is not relying on the hardware layer. So the hardware layer, if you buy this particular hardware layer from us, then you either can consume it from the cloud, you can consume it as an on-prem solution, or you can use it as a managed services. So it's up to you as an organization to change it later on, but you never have to change your hardware layer. You dictate what your consumption model will be and how you want to manage that. And after that, everything is open with APIs, so that either we can consume the data, as organizations you can consume all the rich context data we have, or third parties can consume in order to drive a better business analytics. So now I'm going to take a deep breath and start breathing again. I want to thank you, and this was a short pitch, I think, how we can change the edge of the network and really drive new digital experiences.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mahmoud Kamal, coming from Habtoor Group. What are you doing in regards to expandability? If I take a hotel as an example, I used to have the need of 500 to 1,000 concurrent connection at the same time. For the same property size, now I'm talking about times 5 or 6. So if I needed 1,000, now I need a 6,000. So are Aruba is taking this into consideration where I don't need to throw my hardware, I can expand what I have?
Okay. So it's about how many devices you have and about the operational efficiency perspective?
It's the expandability in general.
Okay.
Do I have to reinvest in my hardware every other year because of the incoming demand? You just said about connecting to IoT.
Yeah.
The minute you say IoT, I think of not only smart homes, I could think of new cars, new...
Okay. So it's a good question. So what do? We do a couple of things actually. The first of all is we're making sure that if you need to replace the hardware, everything is zero-touch provision. So you replace the hardware, it gets automatically the same configuration. The second thing we do is everything around colorless ports, how we call that. So everything you connect will be automatically detected and the role will be pushed to that particular switch or the wireless access point. So that's the access you get. The other thing we do that in technology, you always have devices that have different life cycle, right? So you have access points, you have a quicker life cycle at the moment than, for example, switches, than, for example, infrastructure cabling. So what we try to do with the switches is something that called smart rate technology, for example, that you can use traditional cabling, but you can do 1, 2.5, 5, or 10 gig. So you can change in bandwidth, so you can replace the access points much faster, but not replacing the switch, because the switch maybe has a 10-year life cycle and the access points maybe a 3-year life cycle, because the adoption of the smartphone goes so quick. And there's a lot of technology we have in there in order making sure you can more or less extend your life cycle of the equipment, but still making sure you can adapt technology at the edge of the network without replacing everything.
Hi, this is Ahmed Al-Huda from Ministry of Economy. Impressive presentation, but as you mentioned that you need to build the full infrastructure from the hardware to software. Does it mean that if I want to adapt your technology, that means I need to throw all the current equipment that I have and I have to start build from scratch all my network infrastructure in order to adapt your new technology?
No. So we also know that Aruba, we are not the only vendor in the world, and all the software we have, we also manage third party. So we manage third party from a security wise. We can even control a third party from a policy perspective. So you either can have a policy where you want to have like a dual vendor kind of approach, or you can have a migration strategy, but you always can manage third party services with the same equipment. The only thing that we sometimes need to be careful of is we can manage or we can control it from a security perspective as much as that particular vendor supports in their hardware, for example. So we try to do as much as we can in order to support that. So for example, with a Cisco switch, we can fully configure them, we can fully push security policies like ACLs or VLAN in order to get in the same model as we are used to, but we always are relying on the vendor from that particular perspective.
Okay, that's fair enough. And the other question is, what makes you stand out from your competitors as well?
I think where we really stand out is our solution with the colorless ports, or the solution where we called ClearPass. And with ClearPass is where we say, okay, we don't almost have no configuration on the networking switch based on what you connect, based on the device, on the user, and on the application. That dictates what role you get on the network. And that's also where we have an integration with Palo Alto, with Checkpoint, where we can even have a bidirectional sharing of information to also control and workflow automate all the rest of the infrastructure. And that's, I think, where we are really differentiating our infrastructure.
Fair enough, thank you.
Okay.
I'm Luay Nakhal, بلدية دبي, from Dubai Municipality. All right, thank you very much for this presentation. My question is about the coming challenges, actually, with the technologies and new topics like AI and blockchain and these things. And the network infrastructure, it needs, in addition to the regular analysis. It needs to do something more with AI specifically.
Yeah.
So what's the AI side in this Aruba solution?
So, two things that we are working on at the moment is, I briefly touched base on this proactive, the proactive support, for example, or the proactive support. So what we are using is, we are trying to see is how much can we use all our infrastructure components as a sensor. So how much data can we get out of that? And how much data can we use for AI in the sense of, how can you measure if you are doing this experience? How can we automatically detect if there is problems in your network and even fix them? The other thing we do from an AI perspective there is also security. Because security these days with all these devices come from the internal, right? IoT devices are most of the times made for cost. And replacing IoT devices is economically not feasible. So you will need to deal with a lot of devices that are already in this infrastructure. So what we do with AI on that perspective is measure their normal behavior. So if a temperature sensor, for example, is sending a temperature every 5 seconds, and he starts to do that every same second, or he starts to do that where the bandwidth gets bigger, that's strange. That's an abnormal behavior. It doesn't always mean it is malicious, but it's an abnormal behavior. And that's where we do a lot of AI or machine learning, where we put effort in. It's a product that we call Introspect. On top of that, where we are figuring out how we can detecting more of these threats with machine learning in order to deliver a whole new ballgame on security. And the last thing is, how can we open up all the information we have from the switching and deliver it, for example, to other AI platforms, like retail. If you do retail or hospitality or healthcare, for example, how can we use all the data we know, in particular if we also authenticate it with ClearPass, how can we use all the data and maybe correlate the data with loyalty data or correlate the data with patients data, for example. And that's where we are spending a lot of effort on from an AI perspective.
Does this mean it will report unusual behavior and or it will give a recommendation to fix problems and these things?
Yeah, so we are using risk scores in order to do that, and we also give a confidence score. So, for example, with machine learning, you have two types of algorithm. One is the algorithm that we as a vendor can learn them, and the other algorithm is that will take time, that's learning you as an organization. So if, for example, we did a couple of proof of concepts, where with a university, and with a university, we are comparing also, if you are working in a finance department, you have a certain behavior as an individual, but the whole group of finance also has a certain behavior. So how are you behaving compared to your groups? And in this particular case, it was a professor, and the professor was leaving out of the organization, and his Dropbox upload, it went increased big time in these couple of weeks. And what he was doing, he was exfiltrating a lot of contact data out of there. And if I, for example, log in today with my user here, and I log in within 5 minutes in the Netherlands, that's an abnormal behavior. That's what they call a land speed violation. So, and there is more of these things either from devices and from users. They call that user and entity behavior analytics.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. In terms, you have mentioned so much of retail. This is Kumar Prasoon here. I'm the group CIO for Al-Safi Group, one of the leading retailers in this zone. So I have a question which has 3 parts. The first question is, from a retail digital supply chain point of view, what is the use case that you have for, space planning? Yep. That's the first thing. And then, the next. Yeah.
So I answer this one first, otherwise I forget it probably.
Yeah.
Space planning, we have a couple of use cases. One is in combination with Microsoft. Microsoft was at the time searching for a better use of their IoT platform in Microsoft Azure. And what we did there is that we are sending all the data, location-based data, to Microsoft, so there's more XY data, and we can make heat maps, how it is being used. And the other solution is with a couple of partners. So Microsoft data is very interesting if you want to connect it with data you have as an organization. Because within Microsoft, you can send everything up and make correlations. And then there is a couple of partners where we work with. One is Lone Rooftop. And Lone Rooftop is really, they are consuming our wireless data or our Bluetooth BLE data. And what they are doing is they are doing planning on space. They are also using it in order to plan, for example, cleaners. And you have multiple modules on there. And we also have a company called Skyfi in our partner ecosystem. And Skyfi is focusing everything about real estate. So if you have like a shopping mall in Dubai, and you can verify really how your real estate is being used, you can also prove that to potential renters, and then share the price up. And that solution is called Skyfi.
And the next question is the HPE layer, the Aruba layer that you're talking about. In terms of industrial digital transformation, when you have an existing infrastructure
Yep.
with ABB, DCS, SCADA, OPH, so what is the value add? Because this is a typical industry question.
Yep.
What is the value add Aruba is bringing?
Okay.
Do you have the power of getting the platform neutral data and create an SDN platform so that you have a big data and analytics? Is this what HPE is planning, or
Yeah.
what is your roadmap?
Already have. So what we do in industrial IoT is something we call connect and protect. And with connect and protect, if you have a SCADA device, for example, that always has been living in this air gap networks, right? So security was a non-issue for them, more or less. So what we say is we first need to make sure that a lot of these devices don't even talk Ethernet, for example. So what we have is we have a couple of partners where we work with, where we can connect these devices, gateway them into Ethernet, and then the next step we do is authenticate them, making sure we can profile them, so make sure that you exactly know what is on your network, visible them, give them a particular role, and then using that data to do more from an analytics perspective. And then the last part, so then if you connect the device, then you have protected the device, and the last part is we have like we called edge compute, that is ruggedized compute, that you can put as close to the device, because in particular in industry, for example with BMW we are working, you need to make the decision quick. You can't wait to go up and then make a decision, because the factory is continuing. So that's what we call it with edge compute, where we make this decision quick, and we can upload aggregated data from an analytics perspective to the cloud or to an upstream platform further on. That's what we have right now.
And last point is the space energy optimization.
Yeah.
So in terms of renewable energy like solar, what is the IoT use case you're talking
In place in which one?
Solar energy.
Solar energy?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
For us, it doesn't matter as long as our switches and access point get. The only thing that we do a lot of development, how we can lower the power as much as possible. And for IoT, for example, how we can deliver lower cost APs in the future that reaches further, because otherwise the IoT battery needs to be under control, right? That's for our perspective where we put a lot of energy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dobian, for your presentation, and thank you to all of our panelists for the amazing round. Please take your seats. Thank you.